Thank you very much, Darren Marcel. Permit me to recognize my parliamentary colleagues in the front, Minister Hines and Minister Dillon, Minister Moses, other members of the government at various levels who are here. I particularly want to acknowledge the members of the Police First Division who've come out here in their numbers tonight and the rest of the police service. But most importantly, I would like to acknowledge my fellow Laventillians, all of you here. As I sat here tonight and I listened to Miss Harvey, what's the other piece? Mrs. Harvey Mitchell. She's Miss Laventille Harvey Mitchell is added on after. But as I listened to her life story, I was wondering whether I had anything to say after, because it's a very limited program, and she spoke for both of us. And I would like to hear you tell us something so that we can have that conversation, because a lot of what she said, I can simply just attach my name to it. But let me take 5 minutes and tell you where I came from, because I think some of you know who I am. You know I'm the Prime Minister of this country. That's the job. But let me tell you where I came from, so that you can have an idea that it is not where you come from, it's where you want to go, how you know to get there, and where you end up. I was born in Mason Hall, Tobago. And at 1 year old, my mother left me in Tobago with my grandparents, and she moved to Trinidad. I need not tell you where in Trinidad she went. She moved to Laventille. And I was born in a 2-room house in Tobago. I don't know how they did it, but a lot of Tobagonians in those days raised families in 2-room houses. And notice, I'm not talking about 2 bedrooms, 2 rooms. 1 bedroom and 1 other place that you don't spend too much time, because that was set out for visitors. It's called the hall. So always well polished, chairs there, no linemen around there, no idlers there. You pass through and go outside. I was born in a house like that. Galvanized roof, tapia walls, wooden floor, wooden windows. My mother left me there at 1 year old. And I went to primary school. Mason Hall government, after I went to Mariah government for Mariah SD for a little while. But I really spent my time in primary school in Mason Hall government. At that time, I had no idea what I was going to be, except that I know that I was a child. And I know that school was the place you go, and you go there to learn. But most importantly, throughout my primary school days, the community in which I grew up assumed a responsibility for me. And I want to repeat that. As a child in primary school in Mason Hall government, I always felt that I was beholding to the community, and the adults in the community let me know that they took responsibility for me. So you were taught to behave in a certain way. You were taught to observe respect. You were taught to know that there has to be a future which you had to earn. And of course, if anything was worth having, you had to work for it, including seeing a mango at the top of the tree, and you want that mango, you either climb the tree or you stay there whole day and pelt it until you get lucky. And communities delivered people like me by assuming parental responsibility, even though you were not the blood parent. When I passed common entrance, I distinctly recall the vast number of adults who gave me significant dressing downs even before I went to the school. I was told how I had to behave when I get there. I was told by people in the street who I will not call strangers These were villagers who assumed their responsibility for my success and said to me, when you go to Blackheath School, you're going there to behave well, to learn, because that is how you will be able to grow up to your full potential. That was the conversation I had with a lot of people. Some of them, as I tried to walk away, they will hold me to make me stand up, to tell me what they wanted me to hear. It might sound useless, but I will tell you, when I got to high school, and there were times when I felt like misbehaving or falling below certain standards, I remembered those conversations. And I remember that there were people expecting me to do well. I went to high school, and then I came after high school to my mother's house. By that time, my mother had moved from John John. She moved to Morvant. And I lived in Morvant with my mother for a little while before I went to university. And then I went to Jamaica as a scholarship winner because my parents couldn't afford to pay for me to go to university. But government policy allowed me to get free primary education, free secondary education. I was now at the university on a scholarship, having come out of the 1970 Black Power, in which I was very involved. But when I got to university, I never took any part in university politics. And there was a lot of politics on campus in Jamaica at the time. But I deliberately took no part in that politics because I came to Jamaica with a purpose. And like Nicola, that purpose was I had to get my degree, and nothing was going to stand in the way of that. It was the first time that I was away from home. It was the first Christmas I was spending away from home. I shared a room with a Dominican who had gone home to Dominica. I was alone. Most of the students had gone from campus. Only a few of us were hanging around there because we couldn't afford to come home. And on Christmas Day, my very first Christmas away from home, my Christmas meal was a tin of bachelor baked beans, a sausage, and a piece of hard dough bread. And when I thought of what was happening back in Morvant and elsewhere in Trinidad, I never felt so lonely. I made sure I locked my door. And at that age, I cried myself to sleep. But when I woke up, I was a grown man. Because I said, I am going to do this, I'm going to get this degree, and I'm going to go back to Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm going to get a good job. Because you see, way back in Mason Hall, there was something that the adults taught us in a package called ambition. You have to have an ambition to do something or to be something. You have to want to do it. You have to drive yourself to do it. Because if you don't have that ambition, there's no motivation. And most importantly, there's a pathway which is available to you, available to everybody. Sometimes it's a crossroads, and there are a number of outlets from that crossroad. One of those outlets is called blame other people. It's somebody else's fault. Somebody owe me something and not giving it to me. Somebody has taken something from me. No. The road you have to take is the road that says, I am responsible for me. You will get help from others. A lot of people helped me. A lot of people helped me along the way. But I had to want to receive that help and to make something of it. And of course, I stayed in the university for quite a while. Got a good job, got good jobs, and I ended up in the political arena. In Tobago, in Trinidad, and one thing led to another. And today, I have a job that allows me to work for many hours. And as far as Laventille is concerned, I want to say to you, the people in Laventille, in this conversation, and you can contradict me when it's your turn to speak, but the predicament that we have found ourselves in Laventille is not unique to Laventille. Other places in the world have had this kind of predicament. When I grew up here in Laventille, it was a pleasure for me, coming from Tobago, because Laventille is very different to Tobago. Coming from Tobago to Laventille, it was a real pleasure and eye-opener for me to be walking all around Laventille and experiencing what was Laventille at that time. Living in Morvant, walking, living, being part of the Morvant community. But over time, we as a people have allowed certain things to happen, and certain things have happened to us, which have created a new and different environment, which is not all positive. And as I say to you, we are not the only people who have ended up like this. But when you end up like this, problems of a peculiar nature need solutions of a peculiar nature. And Laventille require some peculiar interventions to roll back and to change the nature of the community. But some things are good from generation to generation. And one of the things that has to happen in Laventille is that the adults have to stand up, make a break for it, and say, we are going to take responsibility for the young people in our community. And when that happens, hope begins to appear on the horizon. Because if adults take that responsibility and say, I, as a member of this community, I will look out for this young boy or this young girl or these young boys or these young girls. And by young boys, I don't mean 12 and 15-year-olds. I mean those in the 20s as well. And sometimes in the 30s. Because even at that age, guidance sometimes is required. And mentoring and the good word and the good air, setting the right standards and the right behavior can influence even persons at that age. And the Laventille community requires an intervention from the adults saying that we will take an additional responsibility for the young people. If that happens in Laventille, and then there is support from the state for that kind of initiative, which could come in a variety of forms, then we will begin to change the community. And the people who grew up here would not see Laventille as a place to run from, but Laventille as a place to own as your home. How many people can leave Laventille and go elsewhere and make a living? A handful of successful ones. But the vast majority of Laventille people will have to remain and live in Laventille. So we have to fix it for those who remain here. And for that to happen, we, the people who remain here, have to want it fixed. And Nicola Harvey spoke about programs, having specific programs. It's not going to happen by accident. There has to be programs with purpose, programs with outturn. But all of those programs have to be received, to be wanted by those who are here. They say you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Well, as head of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, I, as Prime Minister, I have the authority to allow a lot of things to come to Laventille. It will mean nothing if you don't want to receive it. It will mean absolutely nothing. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter how cheap it is, how expensive it is. If you don't want to receive it, my effort would be a waste of time. So I say to you tonight, let's undertake in this period of additional difficulty, this period of recession, let's mark it in our history as the time when the people of Laventille has said to themselves and to the rest of the country, enough is enough. We will put a marker on the ground today and choose a road that says our portion in this nation is not to kill one another, but to make others live. The schools in this district, I have given the Minister of Education some advice 2 days ago, and the advice is this. There has to be a special program for the schools in Laventille, specific to Laventille. And it starts with the physical environment of the school place. Let's start with that. And secondly, it starts with the security at the school place, to make the schoolhouse a place of attraction. And what goes on in that schoolhouse, we'll come to that at another time, not tonight. But then, you, the parents, there'll be a program to identify you one by one, wherever you are, whoever you are, to bring you into this program, to assist, to make sure that the schoolhouse and the school place is the place where you begin working with the teachers to take responsibility for the next generation. And the teachers who teach in the schools in Laventille, they'll be identified and given extra help to deal with this extra problem, because the schools in Laventille are not like the schools elsewhere in the country. Remember I told you, peculiar problems require peculiar solutions? Well, let's get peculiar. And of course, the talent that resides in Laventille can only come to light if there are programs to allow individuals, young, not so young and old, to participate. One of the things that we are going to do is to refocus on the community programs of the Prime Minister Better Village arrangements, causing you to find a place to express talent and to allow talent to be a positive label on you. Because it is the positive labels that you will create and place on yourselves that will change your community. I told you a while ago, this is not the only place where Laventillian kinds of problems existed. In Chicago, in LA, in Louisiana, in Boston, in London, there are problems like this. And you know how they were solved? They were solved by interventions which identified and owned up to the problems and had special arrangements so that the problems could have been eliminated. But you have to want them eliminated. Suppose as Prime Minister I say to the relevant minister and the cabinet that we will have a program to encourage small business in Laventille, whatever that small business is, and put special arrangements in place for those entrepreneurs who would venture into that to choose Laventille as the place of business. And then some people say, yes, that sounds like a good program. I will take part in it. And then they come into Laventille, or you in Laventille say, I want to be part of that program, and you open a business in Laventille. But then you're afraid of your neighbor, or your neighbor's son, or your neighbor's son's friends, because they will make it a failure for you. It will only be a success if you and your community want to receive it. Programs will be designed, support will come. But as I say to you, you will have to receive it. One of my cabinet colleagues used to say that in Trinidad and Tobago, the government creates rain. Some people come out with a cup, some come with a bucket, and some even come with a fork. And at the end of the day, you know who gets the water. But then you turn around and you blame the government that there was no rain. Laventille, which I call my Trinidad nursery, opportunities are coming your way. Opportunities exist. But you have to have the individual responsibility to self, broaden it to community, and that willingness to make it work for you. This young lady is an inspiration. And I would hope that I'm an inspiration too. Because both of us came from very humble beginnings. But that did not prevent us from accessing what the country had to offer. And I can say no more. But you don't get from where you are, where we were, by blaming other people or by giving other people your responsibility for yourself. Look for opportunities. Seek out opportunities. Be patient, because there are very few opportunities that give you dividends on the same day you invest. You have to be patient, but you have to stick to what you decide to do. And at the end of the day, that kind of attitude will change this community. I want to hear from you. I don't want to talk to you anymore by telling you what I think. I want to hear what you think, and we respond to you. Let's carry the conversation on.